Good afternoon, everyone. Give a few minutes for people to arrive. Thanks for coming. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Just going to give it another couple minutes for folks to show up. But welcome.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Cheryl. I can't get my video to work, but just wanted to say hi. It's Leslie.
Hello.
Hi, Robin.
Hi, Leslie. How are you?
Good.
Just going to wait for one or two more folks. Hi, Leslie.
Alex, I've heard from Azra, she's struggling to get in. I don't know quite what the issue is. I've resent her the link.
Okay, maybe I'm not paying close enough attention to the. Oh, here she is. Great.
There we go. Thank you.
There we go.
Whoa.
Hmm.
So what I thought I will do is pull up the agenda real quick. Let's see. Good, I think we will get started. What I'll do is I will share the agenda briefly. Just as a reminder, so this meeting is recorded, so for anyone who missed it, I know there may be some people interested in participating who couldn't, or simply don't know about us yet, who may want to see this later. We built this agenda based on a lot of the feedback that we got from the surveys that we sent out a few months ago now. And what I think, this is a basic outline. Thanks to World Learning folks for helping us put it together and think about it a bit more. And so, again, the purpose of these meetings is really how do we come together as different organizations, providers, individuals, and lifelong learners, right? Lifelong students, to just better deliver ELL services in Windham and Bennington counties. One thing I'll just touch on briefly is that it's exciting to me to have seen there's an RFP out from the state to deliver ELL services to Windham and Bennington counties. So I think what it goes to show is that the way we're looking about our work here as a dual county group is clearly now also how the state is looking at allocating resources and supporting our region. So I think it's, we had the assumption that it was better together. And I think now the state is really encouraging that model for us to really work with our partners in Bennington County. And part of that is ensuring that across both counties, there's equity and access to these programs and opportunities. So just holding those things as we hear more is great. But to start, I would love for folks we'll do a quick reintroduction. We don't need to do the full rosebud and thorn activity that we did before, but just you name the organization you're with and where your classes are or resources are offered and delivered. Would be great. Inviting anyone who's moved to start first.
Guess I'll start.
I'm not new.
Oh.
Hi, Azra. So
Hi, Sean Marie. Go ahead.
I'm Sean Marie, and I'm the director of the Tutorial Center. We have sites in Bennington and Manchester. We are working with World Learning and ECDC and Bennington County Open Arms and Yvonne's Grace Initiative, SIT, and Amanda is with me today and will continue to be with this meeting if it's the same time, who is one of our ESL instructors as well as our transition counselor in our adult education and adult literacy center here at the Tutorial Center. So Amanda.
Hello, nice
Great.
to see you all.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Amanda teaches the new Americans as well as the 3 or 4 students we had prior to that, which is all new to us as we haven't had any ELL students in at least 4 or 5 years.
Well, thank you. Who's next? Go ahead, Azra. You looked ready.
I guess I'll pop in and then pop back out. Hi, everyone. For who I haven't met, it's nice to meet you. I'm Azra Rahman. I am the coordinator for the New Vermonter Education Program with World Learning, coordinating the English classes themselves, which are currently held at the MCC, the Multicultural Community Center here in Brattleboro, which is great, where I'm actually calling from today. We had a quick little cultural orientation session this morning, which was great. And I'm currently facilitating those. So that's exciting. It was nice to meet everybody or to see you again. It's been a while. Bye.
Great, thanks. Who's next?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I work
Hello.
with Azra. I was asked to come on board in July of this year to help with teaching English at the Multicultural Community Center in Brattleboro. And just today I began a writing class, ethnography class for the students that are coming on. And also I'll be teaching an advanced English class focusing on the English speakers who already know a fair amount of English, helping them with their writing and other skills. So, and I teach also, I'll be teaching that at the Multicultural Center.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Robin, and I teach English language learners here at the Vermont Adult Learning Wyndham Center in Brattleboro and online to Vermonters more broadly. I also teach a citizenship prep class for those new folks here, and I'm certified to do assessments for our students. Nice to see you or meet you.
Great, thank you.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I am not on camera today. I am not feeling 100%, so you don't need to see my sort of sniffly face. But anyways, Tim Rivera, I'm Senior Advisor for Innovation and Strategy at World Learning, and I am leading the coordination of our refugee resettlement and education efforts on behalf of the organization, whether that have to do with the housing component, working with our facilities team, but then also working closely with Azra on our programming. It's nice to be with all of you, and thanks for joining.
I suppose off of that, I'll go. I'm not on camera either because I'm driving, because I started feeling not great, and so I headed home to take a Q-tip and nose test. But I'm Jay Gagnon. I'm the interim regional director for Wyndham County, looking for a new regional director for Wyndham County so that we can get some good stable leadership to help everyone facilitate good things going on down here.
Great, thank you, Jay.
I'll follow up because Jay is my supervisor here at Vermont Adult Learning. And so I'm Gerald Julian Cisse, and I coordinate the English language program and also do instruction. And my main focus is in workplace education. So helping folks that are employed, meeting with employers and trying to help, get over any hurdles that may exist. And I work with Robin as well.
Thank you.
Well, I can jump in. I'm Leslie Turpin. I'm chair of the MAT sub-program. I'm not directly working with the Afghans right now. I was very involved in the very beginning, but I'm still just involved in the conversations with welcoming communities and want to support the English language learning as much as I can and the community work. So really here to learn. And I also have students in our MAT program now who are interested in learning about what's going on here and doing some of their coursework and developing projects that address ongoing needs that are being identified. So, so I'm ear to the ground.
Great. Thanks, Leslie. Last but not least, Deb.
Hi, I'm Deb Coombs. I teach ESL here in the district in Brattleboro, WSCSU, and have the privilege of working with a lot of the students and families who've recently come to our community.
Great. Thank you. And for those who may not know, and just to provide some context, my name's Alex. I work for the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation. I'm a manager of the Working Communities Project, which is an initiative that is really designed to help establish systems-wide change and investment in the kind of infrastructure that supports new Vermonters generally. I host meetings for service providers. You know, this coming week will be focused on maternal health for new Vermonters. I am not a healthcare professional either, but bringing folks to the table and really helping us all understand what's happening, how can we build on that? That's kind of my role here. I also do a lot of workforce development programming. That's my background. And so now, you know, I have always been excited to work with Deb because the majority of our English language learners who are engaging in the public school system have previously been young folks. But today we just had our first day of enrollment for a construction trades class for adult new Vermonters. So I get to work with some other colleagues who work with a slightly different population now with the school. So I'm excited to bring my experience doing workforce development and partner it with all of your experience and my limited expertise around ELL. So that's been an excellent learning opportunity for me. And so I'm glad to be here with you all. I think the first thing on our agenda is really more of an open conversation around how are we communicating what we're doing, both to ourselves and as important, if not more important, to the community. And I think that is, you know, is there, you know, what are some best practices we can develop around that? And how can we work collaboratively to share what we're doing, share these resources, and any thoughts on that? Has anyone thinking about this, lying awake at night, wondering how that we could be doing this better? You know, happy to defer to you know, Azra or Gerald, who have been doing, you know, leading their organizations on a lot of these efforts, or others.
Sure. I think I'll get started, and then Gerald, yeah, feel free to hop in. So I mean, there's a number of pieces that are kind of happening. What we have great is now the center has become very familiar with coming to the center and knowing, you know, having the calendars up and visible, right? I mean, it's a small one, but it's uniquely developed in that Jill, who unfortunately isn't able to join us today, who's the coordinator of the MCC, is really helpful in keeping individuals involved, like updated on what's happening. So it's like we had the summer was a bit slower in things, and we started a new term. And this is great where Gerald and I do coordinate of what times work best and when we can each host our respective English classes. And so it's been a unique challenge, I think, to it is we've created a schedule that works with what's on the whiteboard, right? The next step is, given how the first fall semester is going as they move into this construction piece and as they join GCC, and what their new schedule looks like, which is exciting, is then getting it in paper format. And I think really getting it out to them so that they have something that they can reference for like the next 4 months. And then ideally what we want to do is, you know, we have something that covers what the schedule would look like for that 10 to 12 month period of the year. Thoughts on that, Gerald?
Sure. So I think Jill, as you said, has been doing a great job with the communications at the center. If there is the possibility of having something in a printed format, because right now she writes everything on the whiteboard, but there are members of the student community who don't always get to the community center. So they may be missing some of that communication. So if there's an opportunity for what's on the whiteboard there to also be printed, a snapshot of it and sent out to people, sent to some of the providers, so we can also back that up, because I know, you know, some of the students that I work with don't get to the community center very often. And so that's one thing. with the student community, I was thinking of this in the larger Brattleboro community. And so, Alex, if I'm going off on the wrong direction, stop me. But I have just had a conversation last week with our team meeting here at Val that I feel like there could be more notification to the community, and in particular to employers. So whether we do press releases, whether we're communicating via, a poster, a little colorful poster to say what we do, because I do go out to the employers and, they have the bulletin boards where there are notices and so forth. And, that we can let people know what's going on. So that would be one thing, to have some kind of a printed information that could go out to employers, but also how do we communicate with employers who are interested in hiring some of our new arrivals here, that have concerns about, well, gee, I'd love to hire them, but what about their English? And so that there are many employers who don't know that any of us exist, but there might be interest. So how do we communicate to that the part of the community? So that's something that I feel like more could be done. I know recently I've seen some pieces in the newspaper, in the Reformer, the Commons, about some of Collaboration Key Bank with SIT is one recent one. Let me see, a few other things. I can't remember exactly all the titles, but there were some communications. So I feel like it would be helpful for people to know that there is that workplace English support, and how do we present that? So I'll stop there.
Great. Yeah, I'm hearing a few different topics, kind of, or really the one is that we need different communication strategies and tools for different populations. And I think there is often no better a communicator than the schools. So thank you, Deb, for putting that out, because they're often responsible for telling students, making sure students understand things, which we know requires involving their parents and revolving everyone else in their lives along that. And so I would say that thinking about how do we communicate to our students is one question. How do we communicate to employers that certain folks are either enrolled in classes or that they're available is another. And then there's a third piece is, how do we communicate to the community that this work is being done and how? Because all of those have different purposes and desired outcomes. Yeah, and so I think that's something to think about. And trying to see where they best fit. For now, and I think we can and should address all of those questions. But I would put out that the most pressing need is for the students and the institutional partners to have something that is easily and quickly updated. And then from there we can focus on how do we engage with others in that regard. In some ways, it's how do we, and this would be a foundational document that we would include with employers or send with employers, that here are all the resources available to individuals. So depending on the shift you're thinking of hiring someone for, they can look at a schedule and envision, well, either they're going to ELL class after they get off a shift, and we will explain to them how that's probably not the best because of how tired someone is and they're learning, or maybe they would find time in the day for them to attend a certain class. Or it's much more transparent when eventually you ask an employer, hey, can this person step out for an hour so that they can attend this class? It seems less last minute if it's on that calendar and it's something we're all talking about early on. But do we go ahead?
Sorry, Alex. No, just in that respect, I wonder whether or not understanding also the limitations of digital tools for the populations we're trying to serve at the moment. I do wonder, but understanding also their value in terms of being able to be updated on a consistent basis, I do wonder whether or not a publicly available, like Google Calendar, that some of us could, that, you know, us providers could update periodically, would be useful. And then that calendar could be, you know, on a semi-regular basis, be printed for distribution. I think, you know, they should be fairly easy to format in such a way that they could be printed as a calendar. I don't know if anyone else has had experience with that, but I think whether it's for employers, prospective students, etc. Also, given the nature, I gather the you know, those who are more active in the MCC can confirm, you know, sometimes circumstances change, and so schedules change. So just wanted to kind of put that out there and check as to the feasibility of that.
Can I I'm going to follow up with that, Tim, since I see that we don't have anybody from the MCC currently here, but I do know, for instance, that they are working on their own website, you know, their own public website. So this, of course, is twofold. There is the one hand that it does communicate with the community digitally, what their services are. And this, I think, will also then therefore include our calendar. It does go, of course, go back to there's still a digital literacy or a computer literacy with a number of individuals. So I think that takes care of one part of it for sure. And I think you're right. The follow-up would be then once that's established, then you have printed copies right next to the whiteboard, for instance, and or then distributed among the most popular places across town. And or at employees, employers, as well as just part of maybe the conversation with potential employers.
Is MCC Multicultural Center?
Yes.
Yes.
And that, can you just refresh my memory? Who runs that? Is that a World Learning? Is that a school? Is that a Brattleboro place? Or
it's ECDC's, the Ethiopian ECDC's. Yeah, so ECDC has two offices here in Brattleboro. They have their main offices, and then they have their multicultural center, which is here down in the main downtown Brattleboro. And there are some offices here, but the primary service, the point of this is for English classes as well as meetings with, you know, Department of Labor and any of the other navigators and case managers, for instance.
And do people, do the New Americans, do they, I think Jay and, how do you pronounce your name, Cheryl? So do they meet?
Muted, but it's Cheryl.
Do they meet, do some of them meet at Val, at the Val House or School Center, or is it mostly the Multicultural Center?
So we have students who do come to our location. It's a little bit out of town, but it's actually right across the parking lot from ECDC as the CASP, which is the Community Asylum Seekers Project. And so we do have folks who come right over. I do have students who meet with me here, but the majority of them, I set up classes at the Multicultural Center. And what's been happening is some of the classes are Vermont Adult Learning classes that are offered there. Some are the SIT World Learning classes. In either case, we blend classes together. So if it's a class through one of my employers, that it's for their employees and Vermont Adult Learning is paying for that teacher, we also welcome any of the other SIT students who are free and want to be in that class are able to join it. The majority of our classes are taught at all different levels at Vermont Adult, at the Multicultural Center. Some of the students who have very specific needs, so for instance, we have a woman who's goes to many of the English classes, but she's also studying to become a licensed practical nurse. So she meets with us here because we do very focused LNA work where she won't get that at the MCC unless there's a tutor or someone goes down there for helping her. But so she comes to our offices, but primarily, ECDC has been great to let us work there as well.
So we're trying to figure that out in Bennington. And we have students from the high school that we actually had in the summer that are older teenagers. We're trying to figure out how to integrate them. And then many of the new Americans are working. So I know that somebody might have reached out to you, but I think there's 5 men, that happen to be working at one of the at Mac Molding, which is in Arlington between Bennington and Manchester. So we're trying to figure out how to continue with those folks who we had in the very beginning, because the goal for many of them is to not only learn English, but to be working. So we're happy that they're working.
And Sean Marie, I want to mention I met with Bill Colvin and the folks at the Bennington County Regional Commission. And part of the secret of why some of our employers have been able to pay for their own ELL is through a Vermont Training Program grant.
Alex, I mentioned that to them months and months ago. And what I'm hoping doesn't happen is that, we've gotten sub grants to do this work here. And what I'm hoping doesn't happen is that Brattleboro folks come to Mac Molding to do that. I had told Bill and Jeannie that the grants in your 3 different companies that had taken them on, that Val was contracting out to do some of the classes for the employees, was a workforce grant separate from any of the ELL grants.
Yep.
And that I had told them if the hospital or Mac or came on, which are our bigger employers, and even the high school had gotten a number of people working for them, that they could apply. But in the beginning, back from January till a month ago, there was one here and one there and one here and one there, and there wasn't a concerted effort to do what you guys did over there, and Alex, in terms of getting your grant. So I'm hoping, I will obviously talk to Bill and to Jeannie, but I know resources are narrow and people are short. Like, we're looking for more people to help us.
Yep.
So I don't want to find people here and then people are coming from Brattleboro to help.
Yeah.
I mean,
although
I would happily take people from Brattleboro to help.
No, so my role is to build capacity in both counties. If we have all of the ELL teachers in Brattleboro, we're not doing our jobs right. So that is the goal, is that so that we can support employers in thinking longer term about including these funds, and then to spend it locally and build that capacity with the organizations they're already working with. So
can you connect, if Mac Molding, will you then have them connect to us? Because part of the funding that we got through through the big stream that came through World Learning is to continue with those folks at Mac Molding. And I'm in touch with these people all the time. It's just that, as you see, there's so many people here, but Amanda actually taught those folks in the very beginning, and we were trying to work out with some of this new funding how we could do evening. But as many of you know, the new Americans are working very hard to save money, send money home, expenses. And so if they're working from, on a shift and it's half an hour from their home and they have kids, they're not necessarily going to want to come out at 6 o'clock to do an English conversation class or learn. So we had proposed that we would go in there if there were enough people. But again, you can't contact everybody. And so I'm saying it to this group, and I see that Tim has his hand up from World Learning, and I know that Jay works with Joe. So I'm just putting it out there, and I'm asking Amanda to attend these meetings so that we don't do double efforts for things or no efforts for something that needs it. And Azra and I are meeting next week, and we're doing an orientation for the volunteers that the Bennington County Open Arms is getting. And we have somebody who teaches in the school to explain the difference from teaching an adult versus a younger student, somebody who's isn't literate in their home language versus somebody who's educated. I mean, there are so many layers and complexities that, you know, you have people thinking things should happen faster. And we, you know, what we try and explain is, you know, 3 steps forward, 1 step back is progress. It's not always going to go forward. And I know I'm talking to people who completely understand what I'm saying. And often I'm talking to people who do not. So I appreciate you listening to me. Amanda, would you like to, Amanda's much quieter than I am.
You said it all.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that's a great lead into, you know, really looking at what do we need in each county? And that's capacity, that's more teachers and more offerings. But the coordination is, and the learning and how we do it. So we want to replicate what we've done in Brattleboro and Bennington County by building capacity in Bennington County, not by sharing or stealing or borrowing resources that'll eventually go away. So you heard loud and clear. I think that's like an excellent conversation to think about in this group. And so I'll follow up with Bill and make sure we all connect so that we all know how employers access these funds. All, you know, that you folks can put together that proposal to do that work in Bennington County and be those providers of choice. And so that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Tim.
Thanks, Alex. I actually wanted to pick up on a comment, Gerald, that you made in your prior remarks, and that is sort of relates to ad hoc participation in some courses, which I think has been a real challenge. From the perspective of our donors, from the perspective of doing, I think, assessment, from the perspective of doing sort of appropriate program management, I think it's really important that we reinforce to students that ad hoc participation it poses serious challenges for us, and it poses serious challenges for us as it relates to donors as well. So I think if I understand that and I think everyone on this call can sort of empathize with the idea that this all started in a very ad hoc way, but to the extent that we can become more systematic, I think it will, I think it will make all of our work easier. It will make our reporting to our respective donors easier. I think it will make the assessments of the various students easier, but that we really communicate from the outset, from the beginning, to students that if they do want to attend a class, that the teacher of that class needs to confirm that it is appropriate for their learning journey, and that to be very clear about the commitment that is expected of students, because I think it's causing confusion, and I can imagine also some heartburn for teachers as well. Elizabeth, I see you nodding your head, so I appreciate that validation, but I just wanted to very quickly put that out there. Thank you.
Yeah, and
Alex, can I follow up on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Tim, you work for Val, right?
Nope,
No,
Tim's
you work for
World
World Learning.
Yes.
So one of the things we talked about in a meeting this morning is when we have a student enrolled in our ESL within the state ABE grant, which I'm thinking anybody from like Jay and Cheryl might understand this. So every 40 hours, we are to assess a student, whether they're in whatever program under the AEL that we have, whether it be high school completion or basic skills or ESL. And so one of the things we talked about this morning on sort of on that same vein is that, you know, we started working with people, we worked 20 hours, 25, and then they got a job, and then the state dings us because we didn't reassess them at the 40 hours. So what we're going to try and do now is when we are thinking we want to put somebody into the state system for the ESL and move them along, is we want to say that, you know, the commitment is 40 hours. Now the 40 hours doesn't have to be in a week or 2 weeks or even 2 months or 3 months, but to let them know that the commitment through the adult learning, and we have classes morning, afternoon, and evening, and we also have these extra classes, you know, during the day, and we want to do more evening, is that's sort of the commitment to helping them learn the English. Now, we're obviously not going to hold everybody to it, but it's just a way of communicating that that's sort of the commitment that we would like, because then that helps, as you said, helps your donors. It helps us with the state and meeting our numbers. And, you know, it is one of the things we do is provide ESL. So I know this is all probably way too much information because we all answer to different people and grants and numbers and quotas. And so that is, Alex, you know, one of the nice reasons to have everybody sort of say, like what Tim said about making sure that teachers are prepared for the drop-ins, or that we're not going to sign somebody up and they disappear after 12 hours and then we get dinged for not finding them again. So there are, again, all the different layers and complexities within each organization's commitment to the grant and to the students.
Yeah, and yeah, I absolutely agree. I think so. A few things. One, if the state doesn't change how they fund ELL, we're all doomed, right? So part of us talking about this, and when we acknowledge how silly it is, the millions of different grants available to do essentially the same work supporting the same populations, will definitely create time to make recommendations at that level, because it does disincentivize flexibility in some ways. So that's one thing that I've heard and will hold and will take on. The other thing is we're also transitioning from, to be frank, an emergency-based approach where someone says, I have a need, and we spin up and we mobilize and we deliver. This is the most difficult thing we'll all have to come to terms with, but we're not doing that anymore. We can't really do that anymore, because the goal now is sustainability and building a system. And if every time one person says we need an advanced class, and everyone gets together, they plan the class, they do X, Y, and Z, and then all of a sudden no one shows up to that class ever. I think we're feeling that burn, and it's not just burning us out, it's preventing us from creating that process of starting a new class. And so I want to honor what everyone's said. I think in some ways we're getting pulled into the conversation of starting more classes, which I know is a hope and a goal. I want to bring us back and say communicating about what's already existing, because the next step in this problem is, if we think there's a need, how do we communicate about that need? Or how do we really understand the size of a need? Is it one person saying, oh, I wish I could do blank? Or, oh no, we've spoken to 10 individuals, we've spoken with 10 individuals who we know are available at the same times, are committed to this and not. And because individualized solutions are available, but those really need to be pursued in a much different approach than what we're talking about is developing community resources. And so again, I know the crises won't stop today. and how we respond won't change overnight. But the goal for this again is to say, all right, how are we communicating about what's available? Are people asking for more because they don't understand what's available? So that's part of it. I do want to come back to this initial component of how we want to communicate about what's happening, because the next topic, whether we'll get to it today or not, is okay, what do we need? We've talked about what we have. We can talk about that. Well, we've got a piece of paper that we can send out to folks. I heard that's really important. Yes, exactly. So, that's Tim makes a great point, is that funds for people who are not yet employed to learn English may essentially be taken away from them when they become employed, or based on the programs, they are making it more difficult to fill a class than, even though they're giving you all the money to run the class. Sometimes you accept the money, and in agreeing to those restrictions, you actually start excluding different folks from the class. It's something that we're very familiar with in the workforce development world, is that if a program is only funded through WIOA, or if there's only folks who are attending the program through one funding stream, it may preclude people who are employed but want to take the class otherwise. And then all of a sudden you only have 6 people for a class instead of 10. And then all of a sudden the class there aren't enough people to run the class. And so scale is something that makes the funds we get go further. The more people we can support with the same amount of funds, the easier this is in some ways. And so again, that just to say that these are all things that we can balance, but we also would need to advocate to change longer term. And part of this is the asset mapping that we'll be doing together also, is to say, so what does it take to start a new thing for a diverse group of folks with maybe a diverse group of needs or a diverse group of backgrounds? So everyone's exactly the same English level, but 3 people have jobs, 3 people are single mothers, and 3 people are, parts of households with incomes above a certain level, but those specific people aren't learning or aren't working, right? The fact that we as educators need to worry about that is already a red flag, but I think that's kind of what we're trying to learn more about and advocate for. Leslie, I see you're.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there is this other question that was brought up, which was sort of about this whole open enrollment and people, the challenge of that for teachers and the reality of that for students, that there are a lot of barriers to them participating. I'm not sure if anybody is looking at what are the barriers for people attending on a less than sporadic sort of way, and if we're addressing what those student needs are. I mean, it feels like this is maybe not a discussion for today, but I would really love, to have at some point kind of unpacking how is it for teachers with open enrollment and with students dropping in, and who is that a problem for, and what are the problems and that it does raise for teachers. And then the funders I'm going to put aside, because I feel like my concern is much more with the students and with the teachers. That's where we should start, and then kind of work the funders in rather than backwards. Yeah. But I am really interested in understanding more about, what is causing students maybe not to participate regularly, or but that can maybe be an agenda item for a different meeting.
Absolutely. So there's two, when someone doesn't show up to class regularly, the negative outcomes of that are on 2 different ends. Of course, from the learner perspective, and that's what Leslie's talking about, is that there are barriers to learning and showing up and being present that we need to understand and better address. It is connected because maybe not as educators, but as program managers, that attendance may directly impact the funding of that, the ability for that program to run. So, and the worst part is sometimes those things are in opposition to each other. And that is kind of what I was intimating is something we're very familiar with in the workforce. But, you know, yes, I would say that first and foremost, it's that the folks who want to attend and are committed to attending are able to. The people, that's a barriers question. Then there's, you know, are folks saying they're committing to something or interested in something, but they're not. That may be a cultural thing that we need to learn more about. But also from our side of things, you know, maybe we need to communicate better that this commitment is so that we can offer these services to the community. And a wishy-washy response from you as an individual may actually impact another community member who needs these services. And so these are varying things that, again, it's both about the funders, but it's not about the funders. It's about showing up and filling a class and what it means and how that really supports that. So thank you, Leslie. I think that's that again, I'll bring back to how are we communicating about what's out there and really making sure that people understand what the opportunities are, when they are, and how they can show up. So I want to bring it back again. I love this. I'm glad I'm recording it because, you know, I'm trying to take notes, but we are dancing around all important conversations. I've heard print collateral will be really important. I think digital is good for practitioners and program managers. But I think, you know, I agree that right now, the majority of the population we're looking to serve, an online resource isn't the best opportunity. That being said, I do love that, you know, or I love that at World Learning, when folks were there, they had those screens that they would be able to put stuff up on. And so that's, you know, I would say that, you know, whatever we develop from print collateral, we should find a way to share it virtually, digitally as well, not just computer to personal device, but in some instances, viewing it, the easiest way to view it is virtually, or the easiest way to change something quickly and get it posted somewhere would be for it to be a virtual document. So that's just something I'll put out there. Tim put out the idea of a Google calendar for internal coordination purposes, I think. Does that sound like something folks could be interested in doing? I think I'm not a master, but, you know, once we have our schedules, you should be able to put in, you know, Tuesdays weekly at this time. And then Google Calendar, you know, should be able to put those in. Just want
So,
people's feedback. Yeah, go ahead.
Alex, we do have something like that being partly developed and almost developing, transitioning. It was like a working doc within Google, and it's actually being moved to an actual Google doc calendar that does include MCC coordination, of course, and Gerald, I do believe you have access to that too. But there is a new one that's being developed. So that is something that we have here, but it's something that hasn't been shared with everybody who's on this call, for instance. So I mean, that might be something to explore then, if that's what we want to take the next step to be. If that's simple as that, then that might help. And I think what else that goes along with planning is that it also helps with planning around meetings that might be taking place with Department of Labor or any navigation meetings that, like, when I say navigation, I mean navigator meetings, like health navigator meetings or housing navigating meetings that they may or may not have with, like, REWRAP, for instance, just to know if this is the English class schedule. Ideally, those very important meetings might not be scheduled, wouldn't be scheduled at the same time that an English class is happening. Because they both, I think they're both very important, obviously, and for very different reasons, and they're very valuable. But I do think maybe, and that might help. So I guess the next question would be, who would be to share this Google Calendar? Is everybody here? Should we include other stakeholders outside of this group? And yeah.
Yes, and so that's, I'll just mention, I'm also hosting a regional service providers network meeting for folks like Department of Labor, Department of Health, all the state agencies who are involved with New Vermonters. And so
Mhm.
I could very much envision folks from this group presenting these resources to them to say, if you're going to be working with this population, you can almost know that they will be enrolled in ELL classes. So as you look to schedule case management opportunities, doctor's appointments, hire them, that is where I think, you both, we help build these calendars, but we're also the ambassadors for the fact that almost all of these folks will or can be in classes. And that it's a fixed thing that people should be aware of. Having that resource will really be helpful and make it tangible to them.
Okay, great. Sean Marie, I don't know, did you,
Yeah.
I think you have your hand raised.
So Amanda works with the Bennington County Open Arms Group, and I don't, again, this may be at the wrong meeting, but they have, what do they call each family has a person,
Caseworker.
navigator, somebody that helps them. And they have created exactly what you're saying, in that the sponsor family puts in the calendar certain things. And so like when we met with Department of Labor, we've told the Department of Labor, which is understaffed and only got 2 people in it, that we offer classes Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Friday at these times. So when they get a work experience or they make appointments, they know to make them outside of those. But that's somewhat of a daunting task, but that's the kind of communication we're looking for, because as you said, so a lot of people are very eager to have the employees continue with the English, and so it's working around, how do you do that work around? So, and
Yeah.
Amanda says the name of it is something, but she can't remember exactly.
Yeah, I think for a while, we, you all as ELL providers have been dancing around all of these other things and juggling and making sure you fit. Now's the time to make the other people juggle. That's my hope, is that if we have this on paper and we have a way to say, here's when ELL is happening. And this is, for many, the #1 priority, especially when it comes to employment and education. And so let them dance around, because that, and that is something that we can help socialize, because that may be a barrier. One of the barriers that Leslie's talking about is that, folks think that they should be going to class, and then the only way they can get enrolled in WIOA is by missing class, because that's when it's offered. Or some of those kinds, the doctor's appointments are being scheduled by people who don't know when classes are. Their, employment folks are signing folks up for shifts that directly conflict with the class that they know works best for the individual. And so instead of saying, oh, well, now that this person's going to work, we have to find another ELL solution for that individual. It's, again, the goal is to start setting those boundaries in some ways, and really and start building that infrastructure that other people can work around. I just want to honor folks' time in that we are, this has been great conversation. These meetings are exactly how they should be going, and I'm thrilled with the conversation. We're not sticking to an agenda either, but that's fine. I want to.
I know I've talked a lot. And I do want to say that, Amanda, I really wish you'd repeat what you just said, because it is so key to working with these new Americans and their independence. So go ahead.
Well, here in Bennington, we've had some struggles. We had some students drop off just for various things, whether work, school, younger kids have gone to school, things like that. And a lot of our volunteers have just been and us as teachers have been frustrated, like, where, where are they? Why aren't they coming? What's the issue? That they know when classes, they know when they can come, they know who they can reach out to. They have a person, each family has a person, they have a calendar. But if you think about it on the other side of that, since our friends have come here, they've had this calendar, they've had something set up for them since day one. You go here, you go here, you go here. Maybe they're being burnt out by all of the list of things that they have to do, the pressure that they have to make money for their families, things like that. So we also have to realize that it's not just, well, they're not motivated enough, or how do we push them to get, in and learn and be proficient in this and that. But the reality is, like, all of us as human beings, it's so much pressure. So, that's just one thing that we have to take into account as well.
Yeah. I also think there's trauma too, and trauma really affects your capacity to come to class and to be present and to focus on learning. So I'm really glad that you raised that. It's a lot that I think need to unpack.
Yeah.
I think Kate really wanted to say something, and I just want to.
It was similar to what everyone was saying, that just to make sure that the schedules are not used during language classes. Because if we have just so limited time to teach, and then so if they're taken out of classes, or if students, like you were saying, Alex, feel like they need to go to these other meetings that are very important too, but they're also going to miss the English class. Then the other piece is that we have the sponsoring families, the volunteers who may not know all of these schedules and times. So will they have access to this calendar? Because I know a lot of students are being scheduled for different things through the sponsors too. So that's pretty important to be aware of too. Thank you. Thanks, Leslie.
Yeah, so I think this resource is very much for co-sponsors also, as support, often the main support system, and the drivers to and from classes often. I think this kind of consistency will help everyone, and it's just really making sure everyone is on the same page. And I think that's something that we are constantly working with ECDC on supporting, is making sure that their co-sponsors are not just well supported, but kept in the loop as needed. And so we consider the co-sponsor volunteers as providers. So I do invite them to those providers meeting, because they're the navigators. They're not, they should not be the experts. They're not delivering health services or employment services, but they really do need to know how to best access those and support that. So that is very much a focus of ours. I do have I'm sorry, I do have a meeting. I just remembered I'm meeting with someone from the public health department because they're presenting at our providers meeting. What I would like to do is I'm going to make Osra the host of this, if that's all right. And I think then they'll wrap up and just get a little bit more information about a physical document that we can put together for both counties, that again, I think students, co-sponsors, and ELL teachers, that's the audience. I think if we could get that done by the next meeting, that would be fantastic. How does that sound to folks? Employers, I think employers we can share it with, but I think they speak a different language in some ways. So I think making sure they really understand how to plug in will be something. But yeah, thanks for that, Tim. Great. All right. Sorry.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, thanks to you all. And I will see folks soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
I'm hoping I don't end the meeting for everyone. If I do, we'll be in touch.
I did that yesterday.